Hello and welcome to Board Deck and Dice's BrewTube. I've had at least no complaints that last BrewTube I did not in fact have a brew in front of me, so as any male would do, I have overcompensated with 3 brews today. So, we are on part 2 of our look through the expo, and as I commented in part 1, I really kind of went off the plan because of just not being able to sit at the tables I wanted to sit at. If only someone had done like a top 5 tips for the expo video or something, that could have been really helpful. Yeah, so I think next year I'm going to have to look at making more timed appointments to make sure I get to play my top priorities basically. But let's carry on. Perfect Crime from Grubbling Games is a one versus many game that is a really interesting formula. It already funded on Kickstarter and the designer is very unhappy about how late it's going out. You could pre-order it at the expo. And it seems very interesting. One player plays the bank, the rest of the players play the robbers trying to get to the safes, and turns are measured in time. And depending on how long the robbers take, that gives the bank more of a chance to gear up. But it might give the robbers more info and intel on what the bank is actually doing. Looks very interesting. Obviously, the only direct comparison is Burgle Bros from Tim Fowers, which isn't a one versus many, is purely co-op. So it'd be an interesting one to follow, that one. Had a long chat with the designer. The art that you'll see on the photos is not final, it needs brightening up and lifting, but he's hoping to get that one out very soon. Then my other favourite game of the expo was Champions of the Wild. I've actually recorded an example of that, and if the sound is good enough, I will chuck that on the end of this video or as its own separate video, depending on how long and how the sound is. But this was a great social party game where each player is dealt a hand of animals. And then between the players they decide on 3 events from various categories. And these events can be anything from recognised Olympic events like the 100-metre sprint, or more historical events like jousting, or silly ones like hide and seek and ballroom dancing. And you look at the 3, you look at the animals in your hand, and you decide which of your animals will do best at all these events, will take enough points from these events to be the overall winner. You can only choose one, and some events just won't suit water animals, and they have little symbols to show that, but some will. And once you've all chosen your animal, you kind of put it in front of you, and then you have a period of time of arguing and making silly reasons why your animal would be the best animal at that particular event. Why you chose the snake for jousting, for example. And when people decide they've heard enough, they flip over a card that says, I've heard enough. And this is like a timer for the game. When enough people have flipped over the cards, everyone else has to just end. And you have tokens that say, you think this animal came first in this event. And you put your tokens out on the animals, and they stay hidden till the end of the game. So you don't know who's winning till the end of the game. Then you go through 2 further rounds. And it just looks like a lot of fun. A lot of the trouble I've had with these sorts of games in the past is that they don't hold your hand enough to make sure that the conversations and arguments and discussions that are coming out are funny or ridiculous enough to be entertaining, and I think this really has got that bang on the head. It's coming to Kickstarter in September, and that is from Big Imagination Games. I also got a chance to look at Guards of Atlantis, which is one that I've been following for a long time because I've heard good reviews from reviewers I trust. There was one on the Dice Tower, no pun included, and All the Games You Hate Are Bad did All the Games You Like Are Bad, not All the Games You Hate Are Bad, that's obvious. And they all did really positive reviews of this, so I checked it out. It was on my wish list anyway, and after just having a brief run through, not a proper play, I picked that one up, so be looking out for a review of that when I get a chance to play it. Mentioned Clask in our family games video. Clask is, if you don't know about Clask, just type it into Google, see it. Well, don't, because I'm going to put a picture on, aren't I? Saving you effort. Clask is a game of sort of like two-player hockey, one-on-one, but like air hockey, but you have a magnet underneath, and that's how you control your whacking stick. And there's some clever stuff, like there's magnetic pieces on the top of the board that you don't want to hit, you don't want to magnetize onto you, and you don't want to fall in your goal, you just want to try and knock the ball into the opposition's goal. Really fun. It's just a simple dexterity game that will draw a crowd, and the one disappointment with Clask is that it was hidden away in a shed, and I'm sure the shed drew a lot of attention, but you actually had to look right into the corner to see that it was there, and I almost missed this. And I just think Clask is the type of game that needs to be on a table in the family gaming area or the open gaming area, and it would just draw crowds. It needs to have that open space to draw people in, run a tournament, and you would get a lot of buzz about it. But Clask was there. Also at Cubico Games, the popular and almost mythical Jam Sumo was sold out on Friday, so I wasn't able to get hold of that. I talked about that with Little Board Deck and Dice on the family video, so I won't talk about that now. But again, same as Clask, that should have been out somewhere where it was easier to find. But the Cubico are also working on Quickfire, which is a flicking version of Crossfire. And it's a flicking game where you're all playing at the same time, and it was really fun. This was just a prototype. There should be some photos coming up, as usual, but one to watch. Carrying on in the dexterity area, 4 Elements, which funded successfully on Kickstarter, is a take on Cube Quest, the dice flicking game, with, I'm not sure if they're 3D printed or laser cut, but they're plastic pieces. Now, I've got mixed feelings about this one. Little Board Deck and Dice really enjoyed it. It was 4-player, so Cube Quest is only 2-player, but because of the size of the pieces, you need a much bigger area than Cube Quest, and Cube Quest just has a little more depth with the characters in it, so I'm not sure. This one was a bit take it or leave it for me, if I'm honest. Another one that didn't really grab me was Cat and Mouse, that myself and Little Board Deck and Dice played was the first game we played on the Sunday, and it's a beautiful cardboard pyramid that you're moving around with mice, tokens that have marbles underneath them. And at certain points the marble will drop through and roll down to another layer. Unfortunately, all this gimmickiness is just hiding a roll and move game with really wonky scoring. So again, Little Board Deck and Dice liked it. I'm not sure he would have enjoyed his 2nd or 3rd place so much, especially as he kind of latches on to wonky scoring quite quickly. He does not like games where it would have been impossible for him to win, and so I think this one would have annoyed him in the end. We played a giant game of which is a very simple cooperative game of rolling 3 dice, getting to re-roll some, and trying to complete vegetables and food. So if you roll 2 cheese, you can put 2 tokens out to cover a cheese which may be 2, 3, 4 or 5 length. But if you don't finish off a food in that go, the cat will move, and if the cat gets all the way to the top, it's game over. It was enjoyable. I'm not going to rush out and buy it. It was enjoyable. It was nice to play a giant game. We fairly easily won. Another co-op game that was a little bit disappointing was what was this called? It was Devar Games. I don't think I made notes on this one. Fear the Food, I think it was called. The picture will come up. And in that, you're kind of sharing cards with the other players to eliminate certain bosses. So you want to get the right food menu to eliminate these bosses. But it just seemed like, what's the point? Because you could tell everyone what you had and work out the best way together. But of course, that lends itself to alpha gaming, and I don't know, just didn't grab me. The art is fantastic, but the actual gameplay left me feeling a bit meh. 2 more games, and then we'll have to do a 3rd video. So next was Cake Off from District 31. Now, disclaimer and full disclosure, District 31, Stuart, the guy who runs it, thinks I'm awesome. So whether you can trust me on this or not is, up to you. But I think Cake Off is an excellent drafting game that adds more depth than Sushi Go. So Sushi Go is quite a pure drafting game. with some set collection. And there is set collection in Cake Off, but you've got to do that by drafting the ingredients and then trading those in for the cakes, which get you the points. And it's had various tweaks and extra mechanics added, and I think that everything that's been added has added to the fun and is not just fluff. And I've really enjoyed playing the prototype builds of this and seeing it grow. So Cake Off is coming to Kickstarter around about September. September's going to be busy for Kickstarter. Lastly, I want to talk about Secrets, which I believe was Repos Games. Now, I don't want to be too negative about this one because I just got a run through and it's very much a group game. You need more than one player, and the guy just explained what would happen. But again, it didn't grab me. It seemed overly complicated, and I don't know that it would go across well in the groups I play in or replace things like Burke's Gambit or stuff like that. And there just wasn't enough interest in the theme for me. So Secrets was a bit hit and miss for me. So that's my second video of reviewing the Board Game Expo, the UK Board Game Expo 2017. If you've got any questions, ask in the comments, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much for watching.